For many Minnesotans, going up north for the weekend is a way of life.
Yeah, but for one group of people, a lake near Crosby in north central Minnesota is an oasis in the middle of cabin country. MAURY Glover has the story.
Lake Adney is a hidden gem here in Crow Wing County. For nearly 100 years, African Americans have been coming here to own a piece of paradise.
Place of refuge, enjoying the best of God's, creation. I think realizing how blessed we are to been able to have the opportunity, to enjoy cabin culture, because it's a whole nother world.
On the surface, Lake Adney looks like any other lake in cabin country.
From what I was told and what we remember, starting about in this area is where the community started.
But in the land of 10,000 lakes,
and so just about all these places we're going by at one time was owned by African Americans.
This body of water is one of a kind.
Well, just think about what it was like back in the day when they were talking about how they would party and get together and so forth. I mean, I just can't imagine, how that could have been and would have been.
NATHANIEL KHALIQ and his wife have been coming to Lake Adney since they bought a cabin called Harmony Haven here in the late 70s.
One of the things that I loved about it is that it was right at home. You didn't have to take a plane to get there. You could just drive here.
They say driving 2.5 hours from the Twin Cities for some fun in the great outdoors with their family, friends, and kids from the neighborhood, surrounded by other black cabin owners, became a summer tradition.
Well, of course, you would be a lot more relaxed. We traveled out west to Yellowstone and so forth and have stayed in resorts and hotels. And, you always have a little uneasiness about you sometimes. But up here, we didn't have that uneasiness. We felt like we were home.
People began building cabins and visiting Lake Adney in the early 1900s. But in the 20s, an African American named Charles Gamble bought the south shore of the lake, parceled the land, and began selling it to other black families. As a result, it became one of the few lakes in mostly white northern Minnesota where African Americans felt welcome. And they came from all over the country to spend their summers at the cabins and resorts on the lake.
This was my grandparents' cabin, or our family's cabin. And my aunt, Mary Kay, she used to own the place right next door. So my cousins and her, they would stay over there. And then my grandmother, her brother and his wife owned this place.
Bill Murray Jr.'s great-grandfather was one of the first African Americans to build a cabin on the lake back in the 40s. Since then, 5 generations of the Murray family have enjoyed boating, fishing, and building campfires at their home away from home.
It just blows my mind that my great-grandfather got this place in the 40s, before African Americans even had the right to vote. People were trying to, get equality, not lakefront property. And
you hear so much about cabins that you would think that everybody has a cabin. But of course, that's not true.
Paula Mitchell's parents came to Lake Adney on their honeymoon, and her family has been married to the summer hotspot ever since.
To me, it was not unusual because at the time, I thought, well, hey, this is how we do it. And but later on, I found out that it was a rarity, and it made me feel good, and it made me want to participate even more, and also be a property owner myself.
This guy here, his name was Smitty, right here where this pontoon is.
Yep.
And they had at least 4 or 5 cabins on there. They had a mini resort. And once again, children didn't want it, and it ended up, being purchased.
But over the years, KHALIQ says the original cabin owners of color have passed away, and their properties have been sold. In fact, KHALIQ says at one point, 90% of cabin owners on the South Shore were African American. But that number is now closer to 40%.
I hate to use the word gentrification, but it's there a little bit. It's a double-edged sword. You don't want people to be taxed and priced out.
But after 7 decades of lakeshore ownership in the family, Murray says it's a legacy worth bringing into the future.
It's a wheel that's been turning and it's been working, and it's on generation 5 now. So I think, yeah, it's very important. You know, it's like you get something like that, it's like you hold on to it and you don't let it go.
The Minnesota Historical Society has gathered several oral histories from cabin owners here on Lake Adney, and if you'd like to listen to them, we'll add a link to our story at fox9.com. At Lake Adney, Maury Glover, Fox 9 News.